Morning, everyone, to this new episode on leadership, sales leadership, and podcast that we are talking about for the last almost a year now. And what we are going to discuss today is related to an important aspect of selling, which is what we have touched upon previously as well. But it's so important that we thought we should focus more on this one and perhaps take a deep dive and bring some more insights on our practical experiences, share some perhaps some references or some stories with you guys here so that you can take it and make some relevance to it and then apply it in your day-to-day selling or in your selling models. So my name is Wajid Ali. I am based in Toronto, Canada. I've been in the sales leadership and technical and commercial sales role for almost 2 decades now. And I'm here to share my life experiences with you so that we can add more value to your lives. And this is the purpose of having these podcasts. With me is my co host, my friend, and my partner, Simon Rodriguez. I'll just bring him in to give us a quick introduction about himself, and then we will jump into the conversation.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Wajid, for the introduction. We look forward to sharing more of the insights today. As Wajid mentioned, I am Simon Rodriguez, and I've been working similar to Wajid in the sales area for the last almost 20 years, mostly around technology sales, complex sales. And the main purpose of these sessions is to share part of the knowledge, best practices, and looking into adding value to your journey. So I think today is going to be an interesting session. One of the things, and maybe we'll start with that approach, is we want to start defining how to transition from a product-based sale into a solution value sales approach. And I guess with that, Wajid, I think it will be good to frame the discussion around why is it important to shift from a product-based type of selling into a value-based type of selling. And I'm curious about your initial thoughts around that, and what are some of the common practices and mistakes that you normally see in this area?
Yeah, so I'll start from this, and I think it's very much common. It might be fair to say to identify that it's a common theme, call it, um, or discrepancy perhaps in our approach, if you will. And what happens is that typically when a salesperson or a product leader go out in front of the customers, what they do is they start with the product features, the product specifications. They have slides talking about what the product is, what the name of the product is, and stuff like that. But if you look at it from the customer perspective, there's a whole lot of disconnect because for them, product means nothing if you don't have something relevance, if you don't add any relevance to it, if you don't add any uh, connection to what you're doing and what the customer is trying to solve. For example, let's say you are selling, for instance, a web camera, right? So you're in a product sales here. You're selling a web camera. You're in front of the customer, and you start talking about this is a web camera, webcam. It has about 300 megapixel or whatever the specification, and this is the name, this is the brand. We have sold this much of units, and you start giving that kind of information. Now the customer is sitting there and listening to you, but he or she is unable to make any relevance to why you're talking about these features and why you're telling me the product name and what can I do with this thing, because you haven't identified the connection there. So I'll take a pause here. I know we can talk more about it, but I'll take a pause here because I wanted to hear from you if you could highlight some of the common mistakes or discrepancies that you might have seen in your career.
Yes, thank you, Wajid. And I like the analogy there because it captures a few things that you share. Number one is when the focus is on the product and even specifications, right? Things like, okay, this is what the product does, and these are the technical specification, and then there is a disconnect, exactly to your point. And why is a customer? I mean, what does it mean to the customer? Why do they need to know about those features? What is it that is going to solve for the customer and how's going to help them? And I think going back to your analogy, that's the missing part that we see sometimes. Is we see very highly motivated salespeople going and positioning their solution. Our product is latest and greatest, and these are all the really cool things that the solution or the product or the platform does. But we forget about that value that is bringing to the customer. I mean, what is the problem that is going to solve? How is going to change the current state of that customer to a future state? Perhaps they're trying to solve a reliability issue. They're trying to solve availability issue or security issue. So what are those things that customer is trying to solve, and how this product it's aligned with that, obviously, with solving that problem? So I think you describe it quite well with it from that perspective. And I think the challenge, because I can see also coming from a technical background, and I know both of us as engineers, we have a highly technical background, and we tend to, in general, and I think it's a nature of a technical, let's say, engineer focusing on the sales aspect, is to navigate into the technicalities of a solution. But my question to you will be, in your experience, how do we change a little bit that mindset of, okay, well, we're passionate about the technical features of the product, but let's switch and shift the discussion into how it's helping the customer. So I know it's a challenge, and I've had many technical salespeople working with me, working together, and I know that's something that it's a challenge, but I know it's doable, and it's something that we can all move from that product base into a value based type of approach. And I'm curious if that's something that you have encountered as a challenge, and how you overcame that as a potential challenge.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a challenge, and perhaps I agree with you there. It's something natural that comes out naturally when you look at it from an individual perspective who has a technical background and who started shifting from a technical background into, call it, in commercial and customer facing role, where he's now facing the customer, selling the product, trying to help the sales team, if not directly selling, maybe indirectly in front of the customers, impacting the sales function. So, as I gave the analogy earlier about this webcam thing, right? We did talk about the idea of the disconnect when you start talking about the product and the features. But let's look at it now just from the customer perspective and how you can make a connection there. I guess one of the things would be that first thing is that you need to do some research about the customer, what their problem is. In this case, when I was giving you the webcam example, in my mind, I have done some research, right? So I know that this customer that, for example, you're the customer, I'm in front of you. Now I know that you are having issues. The issues that you're having is let's say highlighted 2 or 3 common issues. One is that you have team who work with you, but they're not in the same geography as you are, in the same building or office, so they are remote. Now you want to connect with them remotely, but you want to connect with them through something that is visual, something that you could see them during the meetings, you could talk to them. You feel like that adds more value to your day-to-day activities, right? So that's one of the problem you're trying to solve. Second problem is, it could be that you already have a webcam, but it's not performing up to the expectations, right? A third thing could be that you have a webcam in place, but to your point earlier, you're facing issues from the cybersecurity perspective, right? So now when I talk about my webcam and I'm with you in your office or maybe virtually discussing about this product or solution, what I'm gonna do is I will first start with the problems that I just identified. I will tell you that, hey, I know that you're having challenges with this, and this. I will get your confirmation. I'll ask you, is that right? Or is I missing something? So I will start to make a connection between you and me before I start jumping into what I've got for you. I just want to make sure that we are both on the right track. I want to confirm with you before I jump into the solution, or call it prescribing the solution, right? So that's how I look at it, Simon. But of course, you have been leading sales team and you know how things work. So is there anything you would like to add here?
Yeah, I like the connection that you did there with the prescription and diagnosing, right? And I think that's key. That's the main thing is not even and before even thinking or going about a product, we just need to go and by asking proper questions, understanding what is it that the customer, the prospect in this case, is trying to solve. That's going to give us that input where then we can align the product, the solution with those, let's say, those issues or those elements the customer is focusing on. So I think you hit the main point there is focusing on first understanding what are those things that the customer is looking to solve. Because I think the main mistake as well we oftentimes fall is and take as a we fall into that trap is we go into okay, these are all our differentiators, our main features, but then we overlook what is it that the customer is trying to solve. And perhaps all those great things that you have, I mean, they're not relevant to that situation of that customer. They're true because I mean, if you're highlighting those differentiators, those technical, let's say, specifications, which are great, but perhaps those particular elements are not relevant to the customer journey or situation. So I think that's where we need to take a step back and before jumping into 100 slides with all the technical greatness of what we have to offer, we need to take that step back, as you mentioned, do the research, trying to understand. And going back to your analogy, is it that the customer needs a new solution? Perhaps they're not satisfied with the solution they have in place. Perhaps they don't have this type of solution and they're just going into evaluating this type of offering. So that research, in my view, is the starting point. And then the product follows. Then the solution and the technical details follow, but they need to be aligned with the main goal. And the main goal is help the customer solve a particular problem. And I think it takes us
Right.
back to the fundamentals, right? I mean, we're problem
Yes.
solvers in this space, so we need to focus on helping the customer to solve that particular issue.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of summarize it really well, and typically when I agree with you, when you're in front of customer, as a sales leader, as a salesperson, as a product leader, whatever your title is, and you feel, there's a kind of a predetermined notion in your head, in your mind, you feel like by defining all these or by identifying all these differentiators and product features and specifications, I'm helping my customer, giving them all the information. But we forget one common thing, one main thing, and that is we rely on the fact that customer will take all this information and now he or she will make the connection for themselves. So they will take all this information and now they have to make the connection between what is it that this guy is offering me and how it is solving my problem, as opposed to we go in there and we make that connection for them. We tell them that, hey, this is my thing and this is solving this and this problem for you. So if we do that, we come across, that's a differentiator for a salesperson. You differentiated yourself from the rest of the salespeople in the industry, right? You differentiated yourself, you differentiated your offer and solution, plus you made a very trustworthy and an advisor type of connection with your customer in this case, and they believe in you more than anybody else because you're making their life easier, right? As opposed to just throwing a bunch of data at them and asking them to find the relevance for themselves. So I'll leave it to you, Simon. You can wrap it up and then we'll continue in the next session.
Yeah, and I like a couple of things is the one thing you mentioned about outcome and being outcome driven. And I think that's where we add value to the customer journey. It's not the product you have, it's not the solution you have, is what's the outcome? I mean, how are you helping that customer solve a particular or change a current state? And that's outcome based or outcome driven approach, right? And I think that's where the difference lies into being a really good advisor as opposed to just sharing specifications. So I think that's a core thing. And I'll say the main takeaway is focusing on the customer journey, what's important to a customer, and then we move into the products, features, etc. So I think with that, it's a good intro. I think it was a really good introduction about this topic, products versus solution and value. And I think we'll continue cover this topic in the next session. In the meantime, feel free to share any questions, comments with us, and we look forward to having you in the next session. Any final thoughts, Wajid, or parting thoughts on your side?
No, thank you again, Simon, for summarizing it. So as you said, we will meet you in the next session to continue on this topic. Until then, take care and see you next week.
Thank you.